Right, everyone. It's 12 noon my time, so good afternoon or good morning to all of you, depending on your time zone, and welcome to today's session of the 2020 Virtual Virus Free Clinic. Hope everyone's been doing well and everybody's staying safe. Topic for today is unique enforcements. And give you kind of an idea what we're trying to do with unique enforcements. It started out as one of those penalty enforcement situations that, it's not your basic 3-in-1, something that we don't necessarily see all the time, but when you see, it kind of pops up. And we certainly want to make sure we get those right. Well, we talk about these a lot of times, and in your study guides and on your test, I'm sure we've all had those plays that we look to, and they're probably on our test every year. Something goes strange, and we work our brains and we rack our brains, and we get those right. Well, the hard thing about those is those aren't always the things that pop up on the field all the time. So it's not too easy to find video of things like that all the time. And so that made the process a little harder for this one. But what I tried to do is find some of these situations that it's something different than our basic enforcement, something that makes us think, something that is just not part of what we may have learned how to enforce a penalty since we started. Some of those are simple. Defensive pass interference, which we deal with every game, but the penalty itself is not consistent. It changes depending on where we are in the field. Other things, some involve the kicking game, some involve batting, which always seems to just be a problem. And some things intentional grounding, even though we might know the spot of the foul, options change. Position in the field makes things different. And timing issues, especially when they're towards the end of a game or end of a half, come through. So those are some of the videos I've picked today to try to go through. And some of them, because like I said, because we study some of these rules that are not so consistent, that are a little different, except in the polls, some of you, we may have a lot of agreement on a lot of these polls, but that's okay, because the point is what we want to do is keep talking about it, keep making sure we're up to speed on things, and answer questions if we can. And obviously, you know the disclaimer. Anything I say is just what I've put down. I've been known to make mistakes, so if you catch me in a mistake, hit it in the chat room. We'll have some of our moderators look at it, and if we can correct something, we can get it corrected for you. And also, if it's something that later on, especially now that new rules are coming out, we'll certainly be getting new approved rulings and new statements from Steve Shaw and from your coordinators over Arbiter. Keep looking at that as we go forward. So as we start everything now, we'll go ahead and start with the first unique enforcement, and this will be one that we deal with all the time, and it's on pass interference. Now, to start off with, I'll just go ahead and publish the poll for you right now, and a lot of our poll questions will be kind of the same. We're going to see something in the field. There will be an interference situation, and the question will be, what will be the next play? What's our enforcement? So we'll go ahead and start the video here. And the poll should be up. We'll see here we've got a flag is going to be thrown up at the top of the field around the 36-yard line. We'll have what I think is going to be a little grab and restrict, and interference will be thrown. And the question is, where will the next play be? And we're starting from the, looks like the 26-yard line. We have a flag that's going to land on the 36-yard line. So again, what will the next result of the play be? And the poll is open. The numbers keep coming in right now, still jostling back and forth a little. Previous spot is the 26. The flag is at the 36. Next play B, we'll go ahead and end the poll in about 10 seconds. Yeah, one more look at it here. Okay, we'll go ahead and end the poll now. All right, and most of you are overwhelming number here. Say it's a spot foul, we're going to put the foul at the spot of the foul, the 36, just about 12%, going with the full 15-yard penalty. And the answer is this is going to be a spot foul. And this takes us to the first unique thing about defensive pass interference. We'll take a look at the slide. First of all, defensive pass interference, it's a very long penalty explanation. It's going to be in 738C in the book. First thing to realize, it's always an automatic first down. But the first principle to realize is we want to make this a spot foul basically if we can. That's kind of the general thing if it occurs less than 15 yards. So if we have a interference and their flag is less than 15 yards, that is going to be our basic default. The ball will be placed at the spot of the foul in that situation. So we have that situation initially. So now we'll go ahead and I'll put the second poll up for the second play. Now we'll go ahead and get the video ready for that. Okay, and on this play, we have just another deep play this time. So we'll see this again. We're starting from, I think it's the 28-yard line. And we have pass interference in the end zone. So here we go, 1st and 10, the 28, pass interference is in the end zone. And the question, what will the next play be? And some different options. We can go half the distance to the 14. We can go 15 yards to the 13. We can put the ball in the 1, or we can put the ball in the 2. And this will be the second thing we bring up about pass interference. Here's one more look at it. We get interference in the end zone. We'll go ahead and loop that one more time while just to let the poll go a little longer. And we'll let the poll go for about another 10 seconds. Okay, and it looks like everybody's probably in at this point, so we'll go ahead and end it down. Okay, a little different breakdown on this. 66% of you say we go the full 15 yards. 18% say we put the ball at the 2-yard line. 12% say we go half the distance. And this is one, the answer is going to be we're going to go the full 15-yard penalty here from the 28 to the team. And that brings us to the second part of pass interference here. When the ball is going more than 15 yards, we're going 15 yards. Pass interference will never be more than 15 yards. So that's why we're not going to put the ball here at the 2-yard line or the 1-yard line like you would in the NFL. There's no 50, 60, 70, or 80-yard pass interference penalties under the NCAA rule. It's always a maximum of 15 yards. But the rule is it's always 15 yards up to the 2-yard line. You almost will never have a half the distance enforcement on pass interference. We just don't have that in NCAA. It's going to be the 15-yard maximum up to the 2-yard line on a regular play. So if we're at the 30, we're going to the 15. If we're at the 28, like in this play, we're going to the 13. If we're at the 20, we're going to the 5. The 17-yard line is where things start changing because 15 yards from the 17 will bring us to the 2. And we're never going to go past the 2. So if we get to the 17 and we have something where we're going to the 2, it's going to be limited to the 2. Now you see this in the slide. Is there ever a situation where we could go half the distance on pass interference? Yes, there is. There's 2 times I think it comes up. And that's if we have a regular down or a regular play beginning at or inside the 2-yard line. So if we're at the 2 and there's interference in the end zone, we're going to go to the 1. If we're at the 1 and there's interference in the end zone, we're going to go to the half. Or if you're playing a try and the try starts at the 3-yard line, the half the distance rules apply at that point. So a try from the 3, if there's interference, we'll go to the 1.5. But it's got to be from the 3. If after a penalty, let's say a false start, team A is playing the try now from the 8 and there's interference, the half the distance rule is off. We go to the 2-yard line again on that. But if your try is from the 3, that's where we'll have our half the distance. So that's another unique part of pass interference. Any questions on those so far?
Hey, Kevin.
Yes.
Well, 2 things. First, just make sure you click the at the bottom of the polls. Make sure you click it to publish the polls. I don't know if the polls were publishing to the audience. And then the second thing. Okay. Yeah, no problem. And then the second thing, I think this is just really awesome. Just seeing these first 2 plays, which many of us say, "Oh, this is very simple," but we don't necessarily we kind of take for granted some of these which were more common rule enforcements, and we start focusing on those plays where the ball hit the dog and the clock imploded, and then the official caught the ball, and what are we supposed to do next? And I think these last 2 plays really illuminated for us that we can't take for granted the more common enforcements as well.
No, absolutely. And it's important, like you just said, we call these more common enforcements because we see pass interference every game. But it's enough of something that it's not the same every time. And there are things like that in the rule book. And yeah, we're not seeing the dog and the official catching the ball. And if there's an official that catches the ball, he probably needs to be playing the game. So it's a good thing. And these are the important ones, especially with something like interference. And just like you're saying, we'll take a look right now at play 3 here coming up, which is another pass interference situation. And I'll go ahead and publish the poll on this one too. And publishing it now. And again, it's what will the next play be? So yeah, Tutav, hit publish. If it doesn't come up, let me know. We'll go ahead and play this video. And Again, we're snapping from the 9, and the question is going to be, what do we do here? So you take a look at what we've got. We are snapping from the 9-yard line on position 5, or if we hear the right hash mark, top of the screen. And we have interference in the left corner of the end zone, right near the goal line. And so the question is going to be, we have defensive pass interference in the end zone. What do we do? Okay, I'm seeing votes coming in, so I guess y'all can read the polls here. And we'll play this a few more times and let the poll go up there.
Yeah, I think the results weren't showing, Kevin. That's what it was.
Okay. Yeah. We are snapping, just so everybody's clear, we're snapping from the right hash. Position 5, the right hash, and the interference is all the way to the left sideline in the end zone.
Hey, Kevin, I think we're all pretty clear on positions, but maybe just go over while these votes come in. What do you mean by position 5 versus 1, and what about like position 7?
Sure.
That's a joke.
Sure. Yeah, we'll do that. This is what Brandon's talking to, where we're talking about is a way that we're all consistent on here. We have 2 sets of hash marks, and coaches will go left hash mark right, left middle, upright. But sometimes left and right will change depending on the way you're going. So what we like to have, we have a numbering system. And we start with the press box side. So the hash mark closest to the press box will be position 1. The upright closest to the press box is position 2. The dead middle of the field is position. The right upright is position 4, and the furthest hash from the press box is position 5. Why do we like saying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Makes more sense. It's always consistent. Doesn't matter which way you're going. The other thing, it's very easy. And as center judge, umpires, and referee, I think if we can always spot the ball in one of those 5 positions, it makes things easier. It makes things easier for enforcing penalties. It makes things easier for determining the tackle box, which always helped me as a referee with intentional grounding. And it's just something consistent. And I know we've talked about this before. Brandon, do you do this as a referee? Do you keep the ball position on your left hand by any chance with a down indicator?
Yes, I do. I can't remember which hand I use for which, either ball position or down indicator, but that doesn't matter. But yeah, I absolutely keep the ball position. And I'm like you, Kev, man, I'm specific with how we spot the football, whether it's me spotting, the center judge, the umpire, or anybody else. Get me in one of those 5 positions so that we're very, very consistent throughout the game with how we're mapping the pocket, mapping the tackle box, and different things like that.
And I agree with you, and kind of going into a mechanical thing too. I'm saying referee, umpire, center judge. I know my back judges used to do it too. I'm not sure if other people do it on the field, but it's everybody's responsibility to know ball position and everything too. And that's something that helped me out a lot. And like you, Brandon, I like having that ball very consistent in that. So, okay, so getting on to here, I'm going to go ahead and close the poll now. The question was, what will be the result of the play? And almost 3 to 1 here. Most of you are saying 1st and goal to 2 at the right hash, which would be position 5, while about a quarter of you are saying 1st and goal to 2 at the left hash would be position 1. Can everybody see the results now? Do I have that right? Tuta, Brandon, results shown?
Yeah, I'm not sure. It will have to depend on the audience to tell us if the.
Okay, no problem. But that's where it's coming to. Okay, so the answer here on this one will be, as most of you said, we're going to have 1st and goal at the 2-yard line at position 5, the right hash. So that brings us into our next part of our unique thing about interference. And it deals with, what are we doing when we go to the 2? Well, if we know the 2-yard line is as far as we're going, we know that's fine. We've got that taken care of. But if the foul is beyond the 2, we're always going to go from the previous spot. Now, that may sound a little strange because earlier we said if the foul occurs within 15 yards, it's a spot foul, it's a spot foul. That's true in the field of play until we get to the 2. Once we get to the 2, if we're going to the 2 because a foul is beyond the 2, you're always going to go from the previous spot. It takes the guesswork out. We don't have to worry about really Is the flag there? Was it here? Was it in the middle of the field? If you are going to the 2 because the foul was beyond the 2, we're always from the previous spot. Now, does that matter? I've heard we've had debates. Is it an issue? And the answer is yes, it is an issue, especially if it becomes an issue when the next play may be a game-winning field goal attempt, because the angle to the uprights is going to be different depending on where that ball is the closer we get to the goal line. So it's not a meaningless gesture. It actually is something that's important, and we need to know where it's marked off from and where we're going. So in this situation, when it's beyond the 2, we don't really care where the flag is, left or right on the field. If it's beyond the 2, that enforcement is always going to be from the previous spot. Any questions on that?
No, Kevin, I think that's really good. And you know, for me, I'm a person that has screwed this up on the field. Well, I don't want to say but I'm on the crew, so I was part of the crew. Part of a crew that screwed this up on the field, where we go to the 2-yard line. You know, we know we're going to the 2, but we don't really stop and think about it. Wait a minute, the previous spot is actually on position 5. It's not on position 1. And I think it's really easy for us to sit here while we're sitting on our couches or sitting on our chairs in our offices and getting this right. But we need to really think about how are we going to ensure we get this right on the field when it actually happens, and using that down indicator to mark the position of the ball is one of them where we can definitely make that a meaningful exercise instead of just a mindless exercise.
Absolutely, Two-Time, and that's not something that we have to worry about just an interference. It can be something just as simple as going from 3rd to 4th down.
That's right.
If we happen to, and I'll say I've made the mistake, especially being a center judge last year, caught myself doing it one time where didn't get the down indicator change one time, and all of a sudden I'm moving the ball after down from position 5 to position 4. And again, does it matter? The closer we get to something, it does matter. It's one of those things to always remember, like you just said. We need to get these right because there is a purpose behind it. And so that's what we always work on. One more thing about interference we're going to show in the next play. I'll put the poll up right now.
Click that little button at the bottom right-hand corner, Kevin, because I don't think the poll results are still coming up.
It's like a toggle button, Kevin, if you see it. Hopefully they didn't change the format.
I got you. I see it now. My fault, guys. Okay.
No
worries. All right, I'm going to go ahead and publish the next poll. And again, it'll be what will the next play. And for this one, we're going for help for video to the NFL. But I want you to think about it, obviously, under NCAA rules. And the poll is up. The question is, what is going to be the next play? Coming up. All right, is video not showing on this one?
It was on. It was on, but it didn't play.
Yeah, I'm seeing some issues with it. It's not playing right now. Is it just frozen?
Yeah, it's not playing.
Okay. Well, we'll just go ahead and tell you this. We'll set the situation up since it doesn't look. We've got the offense in a punt formation. Receiver goes downfield, and the potential punter, instead of punting, goes ahead and throws the ball high and deep. And then the defender here, number 33, just takes out the receiver early before the ball is get there. So we have contact through the ball, looking like interference on when the team is in scrimmage kick formation. What will be the result of the next play? And we're snapping from the B45 since you can't see video. And your options, we're going to be 1st and 10 for the offense from the B30, which would be a 15-yard penalty. 1st and 10 from the B30 on position 5, which would be a 15-yard penalty. Or the defense would get the ball at the previous spot.
All right, hey Kev, I'll try to type this out. So tell me what the situation setup was again.
Sure.
4th down.
It's 4th down. The offense is in a punt formation.
Okay.
Okay. The receiver flies downfield. The potential punter, instead of punting it, throws it a deep pass to that receiver.
Are you
that
talking about
receiver-
like the gunner? Like the gunner
like
would,
the gunner,
in this
right?
case?
The gunner.
Okay.
And then the gunner is interfered with by the defensive player.
Okay, so the punter throws a deep pass.
Yes. And
Pass
snapping
interference.
from the middle of the field.
Pass interference action by the defender.
Correct.
Okay, fourth down from the middle of the field, which we just covered was position 3.
Right.
All right.
Okay, you got that up?
Well, it was up.
I think based on what we've said, we've got votes coming in pretty heavily right now.
Okay, perfect.
All right. Go ahead and give a few more seconds. Sorry on the video on this one, guys. I'm not sure what happened there. Yeah, we'll go ahead and end the poll in about 5 seconds. Okay, here we go. Okay, are the results published now, Tuta? Brandon?
We'll just have to ask the audience if they see the results. I mean, we see them, but we're on the
Okay. I clicked the toggle on this one, so hopefully.
Okay, you should be good to go.
Perfect. Okay. So it looks like 77% of you said the defense is going to get the ball at the previous spot, and the rest of you were split, saying it's going to be a 15-yard penalty, and we just put the ball in one of the 2 spots. The answer here is B is going to have it at the previous spot. That brings us to the final interesting thing here on. Let me take the whiteboard off. Okay, thanks. Interesting thing about pass interference. If you have what would be pass interference, when team A is in a scrimmage kick formation and the potential punter throws the high and deep ball, we're not going to have pass interference. This is basically, I don't know where it came from, if it's just the idea that, hey, everybody's thinking this is a punt and you're going to simulate the punt, we're not going to give you a pass on it. So this particular play, if you're in that situation and a punter, potential punter, while in scrimmage kick formation, throws a high and deep ball, if you have what looks like pass interference, it's not going to be pass interference. Now, on the defense, the offense is still prohibited from committing offensive pass interference. They can't go downfield and do a push off or block someone or pick someone off. The offense is still prohibited. But the defense is going to get a pass on this as long as we have a scrimmage kick formation, which means under Rule 2, we have someone in 10 yards in position to get the snap, or we have someone in that 7-yard zone looking like a place kick. And he simulates the kick by throwing the ball high and deep. Now, what high and deep means, I wouldn't overthink that. Pretty much if you're in that pass information and the ball is thrown up from a potential kicker, you're not going to have defensive pass interference. And so in this situation, the defense would get the ball at the previous spot. Any questions on that? You know, we don't see that a whole lot, but every now and then you'll get one of these trick plays. Now, the rule does not say you can't have defensive holding. So if you get someone that snatches a receiver down early before the ball is thrown, I don't think the rule excuses that. We're only talking about interference here, but chances are that's what you're really going to see on these situations. So anything on that before we head on?
One thing, Kev, you know, talk about high and deep. I mean, that sounds pretty subjective.
Yeah.
And you just said it, don't overthink it, but I guess mechanically, how would we piece that together? Who would rule that it indeed was high and deep versus a fake, you know, more of a fake kick action where it's more of a traditional pass route?
Yeah, I think if you saw the traditional bullet pass route, you know, like maybe just, you know, all of a sudden we've got a receiver or a tight end or a slot just cutting, you know, right across, and the ball gets there on a bullet right past the line of scrimmage. That's probably not high and deep. You know, I haven't seen a philosophy on this, but I think your deep officials who are going to be in the idea here, I mean, they're expecting the ball coming anyway. They're going to have a good idea of what the arc is going to be. I think your quarterback's probably going to have, your referee will probably have a good idea of the initial arc of the quarterback passing the ball. This doesn't have, he doesn't have to sky it, I don't think. I mean, if the ball goes up and goes a little bit of a distance, I think we're probably fine on this. Is that kind of how you would think about it from a referee standpoint?
No, I think you're spot on. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, so think, okay, we got some really good rules, people. So obviously the result of what we just did there was based on an incomplete pass.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. If the pass is complete, that team A would just decline the penalty. Well, there wouldn't be no penalty.
There wouldn't be a penalty.
There could be the result of the play. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, if we have a push off by the gunner, now we're looking at an offensive interference situation, and that doesn't go away. So just things to consider on that. So we'll go ahead and move on to a different thing in dealing with one of I think is the most fun type of penalty in the rule book, batting. We'll go ahead and show a play here, but first let me go ahead and get the poll up. Make sure I'm on the right one. Okay. And again, what will be the result of the next play? Give me 1 second. Okay. And here we go. Okay, so we're going to have a punt. And right at the 46 right there, we're going to have a kicking team player bat the ball forward, and it's ultimately downed by another kicking team player. So you can see there the bat happens at the B46. The kick ultimately ends when it's down at the B35. So we're going to have a illegal bat by Team A, possibly. We could have no foul if you think everything's good. We have some different options if there is. So your options here, we're going to go B, 1st and 10 at the B45, which would be an enforcing a 10-yard penalty from the end of the kick. B, 1st and 10 at the A18, which is 10 yards from the previous spot, and a loss of down, which would give B the ball. B, 1st and 10 at the B46, where Team A bats the kick. Or Team B, 1st and 10 at the B35, if there's no foul here, which would be the spot at the end of the kick. So let's go ahead and play that, loop that one more time, and we'll go ahead and leave the poll open for a little bit longer. Okay, and the numbers are coming through. This is one reason I hate kick plays, because everything is strange on them. The rules change a little bit anyway, and then you throw something like this in there and it gets a little extra piece of it. Okay, we'll let the poll go through a few more seconds while we go there. Okay, and we'll go ahead and close the poll now. Okay, and a little bit of a split here, about 2-1, 60, or a little more than that. 68% of you say B is going to take the ball at the B46 where A batted the kick. Another 1st and 10 said we'll enforce it from the end of the kick. Okay, it's kind of strange. Both answers are potentially right. They are both two options. The better option is that B would take the ball at the B46 where A bats the kick. But let's go ahead and talk about why that's the case. Okay, so we look at batting, and let's talk about what you can do with that first. If you're an eligible receiver, you can bat a forward pass in any direction, as long as you're an eligible receiver. So we know that's the entire defense and the offense players that have the right numbers and are in the right position. You can bat a forward anytime. The non-passing team, they can bat a backward pass anytime they want in any direction, but the passing team can't bat a backward pass forward. So we see those kind of things. We know those rules. Those are kind of things. We can always block a scrimmage kick. But outside of that, no player can bat a loose ball forward in the field of play or in any direction if you're in the end zone. So what we have here, we see when the player at the 46, the kicking team player, when he bats the ball, and batting is an intentional act. It's not just touching. It's intended to move the ball to a different direction, to slap the ball purposely, not trying to get it, not trying to possess it, but trying to move it down the field, primarily to keep it away from somebody else. When that's done intentionally, that's a bat. And so what you have here, when the kicking player does that at the B46, that's what he's trying to do. He bats the ball forward, and forward means in direction to the goal, the way he is going. So Team A will always be going forward one way. Team B will always be going forward the other way. So it's forward by the team you're on. So let's talk about what the penalties are for these. Well, normally this is a 10-yard penalty and a loss of down when Team A commits the foul, if the rule allows that. So you have an illegal bat in the backfield or just something like that, you'll have the loss of down possibility. But when the bat involves a legal scrimmage kick and it's beyond the neutral zone, like you have here, the legal scrimmage kick is beyond the neutral zone, there's no loss of down provision with it. So we forget about that part of it right away. And the illegally kicking the ball has a similar penalty. So you've got basic spot and some special kick enforcements to take in position here. The basic spot for a foul during a scrimmage kick play is always the previous spot. So if you have a bat by the kicking team behind that spot, we're going to go from the spot of the foul. We're not going to go from the previous spot because it's a foul against the game, not a foul against the player. So those kind of fouls that even if they're in the background, we always take from the previous spot. This is not one of those. This is a foul against a game rule, not necessarily against another player. And that's the way I've always been able to, I've learned that from a friend of mine. That's the way I've always kept those two separate. So that's one thing you would do. When the bat is by the kickers beyond the basic spot, you enforce it from the previous spot. And so if we could enforce the bat from the previous spot and re-kick, but also remember our usual thing on the kicking team, any foul by the kicking team during a scrimmage kick situation can be enforced where the subsequent dead ball belongs to Team B. So for those of you that said we could add the 10 yards on to the end of the kick where B is going to put it, that's technically a correct answer. We could add those 10 yards on from there. But remember that the bat is also, not only is it an intentional slapping of the ball, it's also an illegal touch. It's a legal touching of a kick. So if you wouldn't have thrown a flag there, you would have thrown a beanbag. And in this situation, that's what you have here. So if you enforce if the receiving team were to enforce the bat, we would have to enforce it either from the previous spot or from the end of the kick, because that's the only spots where really this penalty can be enforced. But if you decline the bat, you still, in theory, have a beanbag on the field. You have a spot of illegal touching where that bat was. So in this case, when you threw the flag for batting, it's almost as if you threw a flag and a beanbag at the same time. And if you decline those penalties, Team B can take the spot of the ball at that spot, at the spot of illegal touching. So that's why in this situation, they could take the ball at the 46 where it was batted. Not because it was batted, but because it was illegally touched there. Subtle difference, but that's how B can get back to the 46 by declining this penalty. That makes sense? Any questions on that from anyone?
That's really good. That's really good. Do you think it's, in this case, it would be best practice to go through the motions of giving the receiving team coach, all these options, or what would you advocate just from a game efficiency, game administration perspective?
In this situation, I would have probably just said the penalty is declined. The ball will be placed at the spot where it was touched at the B46, because that's the most advantageous for the team, and also because it's at the 46. If this,
Yeah.
however, happens at the 10-yard line or the 5-yard line, I think at that point I'm having a conversation with the coach, because field position is going to be a big thing. Because maybe they move the ball from the 5 to the 15, or maybe they take the ball at the 20 if that's where a spot was. But that's a different situation than the ball almost near midfield. So I think efficiency, if it looks obvious, 46 I think is a really good position. I'd probably just make that decision and let the coach tell me he wants it wrong. But further back, I think I'm gonna have that conversation. What would you do on that? Say you've been dealing with that a little more than I have this year.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. Basically, once you get all the pieces put together from the reporting officials, because there'd probably be a couple reporting officials, and just, be really clear that we really need to get to the conclusion quickly that illegal bat, that flag is also a spot of illegal touching. And I think I would reference both, Kevin, in the announcement, decline the illegal bat, and then, have a statement that alludes to something like, the ball will be placed at the spot where the kicking team touched it, first down, whoever the receiving team is. So I totally agree with you. But at a less advantageous field position for the receiving team, we do get into certain options, right? That, the receiving team may want them to re-kick 10 yards back from the previous spot.
Absolutely, especially if it's and this goes into kind of your pregame prep. What is the return team like? What is the special teams like? Do they have you have a runner that can break it every now and then and does? Is this also score? Is it a 40-point difference in the score? Things like that. The other thing I would say, Brandon, you mentioned number of officials on this one. This is a kicking play. It involves a lot of things. This is the one we always want penalty enforcement to be efficient. This is one of the ones you're going to have to slow down and kind of have that conversation and make sure we're putting all the pieces of the puzzle together, because there's just a lot going on.
Yeah. So just to reiterate the mechanics, had a good question. We certainly, if you can get a flag and a beanbag down, I guess that would be great. I'm not sure I've ever seen that, although this is kind of a rare play, which is why this is included in the topic of unique enforcement. But certainly we need a flag. I mean, we can't eliminate the flag. And it would be nice to also have a beanbag, I guess, Kev, but certainly a must-have for mechanically handling this play is a flag.
Yeah, I think, and it's probably hard to think flag and beanbag because so much is moving on as you're officiating anyway. But as long as at some point we have that thought in our mind that, hey, wait, that flag is important, and not just because of the bat, that means something. Don't be quick to pick things up, and just always remember touching occurs before batting. Touching occurs before possession. Touching occurs before anything. And so if you have something involved in that, always remember there's something back there as well.
All right. So we just want to get our terminology straight for those that are asking some questions. The question was, do we have a penalty? Well, I don't know. We have a foul. The foul is illegal batting. Why is that a foul, Kevin? Why is illegal? Yeah.
Sure. It's a foul in this situation because we have a member of the kicking team batting a ball forward, batting a ball toward the opponent's goal line. And under 941C, I think, no player can bat a loose ball forward. And that's why it's a foul. So that's why we have a flag on the ground.
Okay, perfect. Now, we also have this illegal touching. Now, really the same act is both. Illegal touching, it's not a penalty, it's not a foul, but by rule, Kev, what is illegal touching of a kick by team A?
Sure. It's considered a violation. And what it is team A, the kicking team, is not allowed to touch a scrimmage kick that has crossed the neutral zone before it touches an opponent. Those of you who are just coming up from the high school federation rules, the term was first touching. In the NCAA, it's called illegal touching of a kick. And basically the kickers have to wait till the receivers touch it before the kickers can touch it. That's why this is a violation for illegal touching as well.
Okay, perfect. Now, this violation, what leaves it hanging and able for the receiving team to execute their privilege for that versus what makes the violation go away? Let's just reiterate that.
Sure. And the basic thing, you'll find the answers for that in rule 632. As long as that beanbag is on the ground, as long as you have a legal touching of a kick, Team B will always have the privilege of taking the ball at the spot of that bag, at the spot of the beanbag, the spot of illegal touching. Why is that important? Because if the ball changes hands, if all things go on, Team B can sit back and say, wait, there's a violation up there. I want the ball at that spot. And they have that privilege. They lose that privilege when a live ball, the penalty for a live ball foul is accepted. Any penalty, their own penalty, their opponent's penalty, offsetting fouls, those things cancel the privilege. So if there is an accepted penalty, we pick the beanbag up in essence. We pretend the beanbag doesn't exist. Does that answer that question?
Yeah, that's really well explained. And I just think it's important. People are, sometimes we get going real fast and it's the off season. So let's be technical with our terminology,
right,
language of our rule book. The question was, do we have a penalty? Well, maybe, right? I mean, we have fouls, we have violations, and then penalties are really how we execute options for fouls, right? So, you explained it great.
And that's part of the explanation, not just the referee, Brandon, but your wing officials. If you can talk to your coaches on the side, because they're going to be asking, "What do I do? What do I do?" And here's the thing on this one: we have an illegal touching spot at the B46, and we have the end of the kick at the B35. So if the coach says, I want to accept that penalty, we have to know, okay, coach, if you accept that penalty, that B46 spot, that beanbag, that goes away. So you're going to lose that spot if you accept this penalty. But if you decline the penalty, that beanbag spot, that illegal touching spot, that's staying on the field, and you can have that. So it's understanding those situations and being able to communicate it.
Perfect.
Okay.
Good job.
All right, we'll go on to the next batting video, and we've played this a few times. There is not an actual bat in it, but there's going to be a hypo I'm going to put up on the poll. And so let me play the video first on this one, so we'll see it. And we have a fourth down play, and what we're going to have is a blocked punt. At least it looks like a blocked punt to me. So we're just going to go with block punt. We're going to have the ball going to the end line, and we're going to have number 23 of the receiving team fall on it. So let's go ahead and re-loop that video. And for the poll, instead of seeing that, I want to do this. You're going to the one player that's going up there that ends up falling on the ball. Let's assume instead of falling on the ball, he realizes he's not going to get it by the end line, and he bats it backwards to a teammate who falls on it in the end zone. So what will be the result of that play? So assume number 23, he blocks the punt, he gets to the back of the end zone, he bats the ball backwards to keep it in the end zone, and a teammate falls on it. So what do we have here? Your options are, hey, it's no foul, it's a backwards bat. So B will have a touchdown, and they'll have a try from the B3. We're going to have B, first and goal from the 10-yard line because of an illegal bat. We'll back them up 10 yards from the goal line. Or it's going to be Team A's ball, repeating the down 10 yards in advance from the previous spot. Okay, the number is kind of going back and forth here a little, so we'll keep letting the votes come in. And I'm going to keep going with that. Looks like a block. I really can't tell if he just loses it or not, but we'll go with the block. And we'll play it one more time, and then we'll go ahead and end the poll. And again, we're looking at what will we do if this is a backward bat by number 23 and a team A and a team B player falls on it. Okay. We'll go ahead and end the poll, and we have a little bit of a mix here. A little more than half of you saying team A is going to keep the ball. We'll repeat the down 10 yards from the previous spot. or we have from the previous spot, 22 to 32. About 28% saying it's a touchdown, it's not a foul because it's a backward pass, and the rest of you are saying 10 yards from the previous spot. So let's talk about what we have here, going back to our batting penalties. We start with the concept backward. You can't bat loose balls forward, but in the end zone, you can't bat it at all. So any direction. So in this situation, if A23 were to bat the ball backwards in that end zone, we have a problem. We have a foul for a bat. If he does that at the 1 yard line, he does it in the field of play, it's not a problem because you can bat it all along. But when you get in the end zone, there's something magical about that. And the idea is don't do this in the end zone. So if B23 bats that ball backwards in the end zone, we've got a problem. We have a foul for the bat. So now we have to think about what do we do with this? Well, we know what we look at. We have basic enforcement issues that we always come to. And the first thing we need to think about when we have a penalty, any type of foul, what type of play did the foul occur in? Well, we know we have a blocked punt, and that's what we're going in here. We're going to go with a blocked punt. So what kind of play is that? It's a scrimmage kick play. And even though the ball is blocked and even though it's bouncing around and all kind of things are happening, until the kick ends, it's still a scrimmage kick play. So what are we looking for when we look to, hit the wrong button there. When we look to enforcement spot? Well, Rule 10.2.2 will tell us for a scrimmage kick, the basic spot is the previous spot. And who is the foul by? Is the foul by the team in possession or the team not in possession? In this, it's by the defense, the team not in possession. So our basic spot is the previous spot. Anytime the team not in possession fouls beyond or behind the basic spot, the previous spot is where we're going from. That's the basic spot. So our 10-yard batting penalty here would be from the previous spot. And from the 22 to the A32, and we would repeat the down, or if that would end up giving Team A a first down, so be it. So that would be what we would do here. We're not going to go from the 10-yard line because even though there is something in the rule book about sometimes, when a foul occurs in the end zone, you penalize, the goal line becomes the enforcement spot, and that's in 10.2.2D, I think. But that's talking about situations where there's a change of possession in the end zone or not in the end zone, but the play ends in the end zone and there's a foul in that interim. We don't have that here because the foul occurred before possession changed. So the basic spot here remains the previous spot. Any questions on that one? Brandon Tuta, seeing anything?
Yeah, Kevin. So you mentioned batting in the end zone is a foul. Discuss, if you would, what exactly does in the end zone mean? Because I'm thinking like punt plays, and we see kicking team players reach across the goal line and bat balls that have already broken the play in the end zone. Discuss what in the end zone means and why is that maybe not a foul?
Sure. And so I just make sure the situation you're bringing up, Tuta, is on a punt play when there's actually been a punt.
Yep.
And the punt is going into the receiving team's end zone.
Yep.
And to try to keep it from there, the kicking team bats it back.
That's correct.
Okay, so your first question was, what does it mean to be in the end zone? And pretty much if the ball is breaking the plane, if the ball is there, we've got the ball in the end zone. So once the ball is penetrating that goal line, almost like it would be for a touchdown situation, the ball's penetrating a goal line and the kicking team touches the ball at that point, we have a bat in the end zone. But this is a special rule in 6.3.11 that it's not a foul for batting. Instead, it's a violation. It's a violation for illegal touching. So why is that the exception? Because that's the drama of the game. That's where we see it all the time, where the kickers try to come back and prevent that touchback from happening. So it's so common and it's so much a part of the game that we're not going to call it a foul, but we are going to call that one a violation. And what kind of violation is it? It's a violation for illegal touching. Why? Because they're the first team, the kickers are the first team to touch the ball in that situation after it's crossed. So just like we would drop a beanbag if that happened at the 15-yard line, we're going to drop a beanbag in the end zone if that happens. And we're going to pretend at that point that the spot of that violation is the 20. So if, just like we would always say, the kicking team or the receiving team can take the ball at the beanbag spot, they can do that here as well in the situation Tuta's talking about. But the beanbag spot, we pretend it's the 20-yard line. But that's the one time in the book where batting a ball in the end zone is not a foul. It's considered a violation. And that's only when the kickers are doing it to prevent the ball from going further into the receiving end zone. The other thing I'll say, Tuta, again, your question, what does it mean to be in the end zone? It's important to think it's important to remember we only care about where the ball is. We don't care about where the player's feet are. That's a different rule book. That's the NFL book. We care about where the ball is. So if the kicking team player is standing in the end zone, but touches the ball at the 1, that's not a bat or a violation in the end zone. That's at the 1. Same way, if the kicking team's player's feet are at the 1, but he has to reach into the end zone and bat the ball in the end zone, the ball is in the end zone. The illegal touching spot is in the end zone. So that's what all those mean. Did that answer it, Tuta?
Yes, sir.
Hey, Kev.
Yes, sir.
Hey, now look, back to this play we just saw, and we assumed 23 bats it. I thought when we had fouls by the receiving team on a punt play, PSK, we could go from the end of the kick and give the ball to the receiving team. What's going on? You said previous spot kicking team's ball. Help me through that.
Sure. And Brandon, you're absolutely right. We have the possibility of post-scrimmage kick. But a few things have to happen when we have post-scrimmage kick for the post-scrimmage kick rules to apply. And this can be found in Rule 10.2.3b. First of all, the foul has to occur during the kick. So we do have that here. We have a foul occurring during the kick. It's not a try, a successful field goal, or an overtime. We have that here. B will next put the ball in play. We have that here. But the one critical thing we don't have here is that the ball didn't cross the neutral zone. The ball has to cross the neutral zone for PSK to apply. And what does it mean for the ball to cross? In NCAA, for a kick to cross, it's not breaking the plane. It's not flying in air over the previous spot. It has to touch something beyond the neutral zone. It has to touch the ground. It has to touch a player. It has to touch an official. It has to touch something beyond the neutral zone. Now, if someone within 3 yards is trying to block it, we'll ignore that. But that's what's missing from the PSK possibility here. And for PSK to apply, every single one of those factors in 10.2.3b have to happen. That's the one that's missing here.
Very good. And then one more, we talk about batting a ball in the end zone is illegal. And you really covered basically how we determine if the ball's in the end zone. What about a forward pass? We see those batted down all the time by defensive backs or whatever in the end zone. So why isn't that illegal?
Because by rule under 941A, I think says it, any eligible player can bat a forward pass. Actually, any eligible player can bat a forward pass in any direction. So that's not a problem. And I think, Brandon, you may have showed the clip a while back where quarterback threw a ball, it got batted kind of right back and it hit to him, and he just sort of pushed it down. Nothing wrong with that because we're okay with a defensive player blocking a pass. We're okay with a defensive player blocking a scrimmage kick. And because it's forward pass, they can do that. No problem with that. And the rule book just makes that okay. And that's a normal part of the game.
Exactly. Very good. All right, Kev, keep rolling.
Okay, let's see. Okay, I think I'm moving on now. Yeah, okay, we'll go ahead and move on to intentional grounding. And I'll go ahead and play this video, and we'll just keep looping it for a little while, just kind of play it first. So we can see this, we're starting from the 15-yard line. We're going to have some problems here at the quarterback realizing it, getting into the end zone and throwing it out. And we're going to have a intentional grounding. I think pretty clear. we probably all know this, that when we have an intentional grounding foul by the offense, or any foul by the offense in the end zone for the most part, it will, if you accept the penalty, it can result in a safety. So we look at this, when the video comes back on, we'll kind of see what we have here. You can hardly see it, but this is a first down play. And so the result's going to be a safety because of the penalty. But my question is here, let's assume this is a fourth down play. And let's talk about options. So your poll is up here. So let's assume everything that you see on the screen. We have intentional grounding from the quarterback in the end zone, but I want you to assume this is a fourth down play. What are our options? And this is kind of like a school test here. A, safety by penalty. B, 1st and 10 at the B15. C, a safety no matter what. D, A or B, and E, A, B, or C. Let's go ahead and, did it lose the video? Or just play it one more time? Okay, we'll go ahead and let the play go through one more time. Again, your options: safety because of the penalty, B, 1st and 10 at the B15, C, safety only, that's the only option, D, A and B, or E, A, B, and C. Go a couple more seconds here and end the poll after the play. Okay, we'll go ahead and end it. It looks like 3/4 of you are saying we have double options on this one. It can be a safety, or the defense can take the ball 1st and 10 at the B15. A few of you are saying safety no matter what. A few saying all. And the answer is those first two options are options that apply. And this is a unique situation to intentional grounding. We don't have this all the time, but we do have it here with this. The intentional grounding by penalty, it's going to be a loss of down at the spot of the foul. So whether it's in the end zone, whether it's in the 5, whether it's at the 20, the end of the play and the penalty puts the ball at the spot it was thrown. And we know from the rule book, when the accepted penalty leaves the ball behind the offended team's goal line, it results in a safety. So that's what we would have here. If you accept this penalty, it's a safety. But the other things to think of is, let's pretend you, for whatever reason, would decline the penalty. What happens there? Well, in the field of play, it really doesn't matter, because this is a running play. And an illegal forward pass is the end of a running play. So if there's an incomplete illegal forward pass and the penalty is declined, we give the ball to the passing team. I say at the previous spot, but it's actually at the end, at the spot of the foul. But so that's an incorrect thing on my PowerPoint right there. It's the passing team at the spot of the foul. That's the end of the run. But there's another option when the illegal forward pass is from the end zone, and that's specifically for these situations on a 4th down play when there's not a lot of time in the game and the defense may only be down by 2 points and maybe can win it for a field goal. If they decline the penalty, the ball is next put in play at the previous spot. And because the penalty includes a loss of down, Team B in that situation would have first down at the 15-yard line. And so that's one of those situations. It could be a good option for the defense. They don't have to accept the penalty. And like Brandon talked about in the other case, this may be one of those situations where you need to work this out with the coach and find out, does he want 2 points and receiving the ball, or is the time so short, and is he in a situation where he could win with a field goal that he might decline it and take the ball previous spot, get first down, and maybe kick a game-winning field goal. It's something that only occurs on an incomplete forward pass, and it really although it can happen on 1st, 2nd, and 3rd down, the only time it benefits B is if it happens on 4th down, because if they would decline it on 1st down, it would just go back to the previous spot, second down for A. So this is only something that would happen in fourth down, but it is an option to remember. Anything on that?
Yeah. So obviously, if this is under a minute, go through those. Now we're layering in other rules. How would we handle that?
Sure. Well, one thing we have is the possibility of a 10-second runoff, because an incomplete illegal forward pass, which intentional grounding is one of those fouls that automatically stops the clock when the foul occurs. And so if we're under 59 seconds, the 10-second runoff application is there. So not only would Team B get the option of what to do here with the enforcement and do they want the ball or the 2 points, they would also have the option to run the clock 10 seconds. If they decide to take the runoff, we are going to wind the clock on the referees ready for play, whether that's a first down for B or on the free kick play. If they say, no, we don't want the 10-second runoff, then we're going to go on the snap. But that's one other option to remember.
Right. And then let's say that happens on fourth down, like you were just kind of bringing up, and Team B, they decided it is more advantageous to take turnover on downs. Do they, and obviously if they decide that 10-second runoff probably wouldn't even be something they consider, but just humor me and go through the scenario. So if they decline intentional grounding, the penalty for intentional grounding, what are the 10-second runoff scenarios then?
Let's see. Well, if you decline the penalty, if you decline the yardage penalty in this situation, if you decline the penalty, we don't have a runoff situation, right? I think that's how the rule reads. We have to accept. You don't need it's. You have to accept the penalty to have the option for the runoff. You don't have to take the runoff if you accept it, but you can only take the runoff if you accept it, I think is the way to say it. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So I think, Kevin, this play and the other play with the batting, it really illustrates how important it is for the sideline officials, field judge, side judge, headline judge, line judge, to be comfortable with the rules, be comfortable with the situation that's presented itself on the field, and be comfortable with communicating with coaches. Because we don't need to have the referee have to go always come over to the sideline to try to explain all of this to the coaches. In terms of game management, we on the sideline officials really need to be able to communicate these options to the coaches and be comfortable enough to have that communication.
No, you're right. The days of only the referee has to be the rules chief and the only one to communicate is over with. We need the game to move. We need the game to be efficient. And we all need to be completely aware for several reasons, to help our own team on the field, but to let the coaches know these are not things they deal with every play either. And to be accurate with that. All right. How are we doing?
Everything's good.
Okay. I'm going to try to get through a couple of more plays here. Let's go ahead and take a look at this one. And so let's just take a look at what we got here. And we're going to see a nice little fun kickoff. And we're going to assume that the receiving team recovers this at the B27. And the question is, what happens next? And we're going to say that this is just a kick after a score. Don't worry about whether it's a safety or not. We'll say this is a kick after touchdown. He's thinking about that one. Let's go ahead and loop that one more time. Let's see. Let's try that again. All right, we'll play it one more time there. Votes coming in. Again, assume that the receiving team recovers at the B27. What are the options? What happens next? Okay, the number is bouncing back and forth here. We'll go about another 10 seconds on the poll. Okay, and we'll go ahead and close it right after as this play edges. So I'll close in about 5 seconds. Okay, we've got a pretty good split here. So let's see, we've got 40% of you saying it's an illegal kick, and B can add the penalty on from the 27 to the 32 or repeat at the free kick with 5-yard penalty. 25% say it's illegal kick. Free kick at the 30 is the only option. 24 say legal kick, player may drop kick for the kickoff. So the correct answer is the second one, illegal kick, free kick at the A30, and that's the only option possible. And let's talk about why. So for a kickoff, we look at first Rule 6-1, and what do we know? It's got to be from a free kick formation, but importantly, it's got to be kicked legally. Legally means according to the rules. It means from a point between the restraining and hash to hash. After a safety, we can use a punt or a drop, and a drop kick can be from behind the line. Now, a drop kick is a legal kick. We can punt in certain situations after safety. We can place kick or drop kick for any kickoff. That's perfectly fine. But kicking the manner in any other manner is illegal. And for a kickoff, it's got to be a place kick or drop kick. So we know right here we can do a drop kick. That's not a problem. The question is, was this a drop kick? Here's what we start off with. The ball's got to be kicked legally, like we said. But a drop kick, at the bottom of the slide, the player drops the ball and kicks it as it touches the ground. Now, you take a look at what this player did here. That's not what he did. He threw the ball up. So he didn't drop it. So that's problem one. Then it bounced off the ground and came up, and that's when he kicked it. So he kicked it on the bounce. That's number two that he did wrong. So this is not a drop kick according to rule. We know it's not a place kick because someone's not holding it in place or it's not on a tee. And we know it's not a punt because that's dropping the ball and kicking it before it gets on the air. So what do we have here? This is not a legal drop kick. So that's why this is a foul. So let's talk about what else we got. Any kicking the ball other than according to rule is an illegal kick. Now, if you take a look at Rule 612, this is a little point of tension in the rule book, I think, because if you take a look at the foul for illegal kick under 612A, it calls it a live ball foul, which that's why some of you would think probably we can add this on if B recovers. But if you go back to Rule 411, it talks about a dead ball becoming live when it's legally free kicked. So by implication, if the ball is not legally free kicked, it never becomes live. It remains dead. And so what do we do there? There we look to the approved ruling for guidance. And if you look at 6121, it doesn't talk about a drop kick, but it talks about kickoffs not in accordance with Rule 216.1b, and it calls them dead ball fouls. It talks about a punt after a scoring try. It talks about some other type of illegal kick, but it clarifies it's a dead ball foul. And even though the rule book may suggest something else with that penalty provision, the approved rulings are the approved rulings and they're the official interpretations, and that's the official rule. Also, this is something that within the last 2 years, Rogers Redding clarified as well, that this is a dead ball foul. So the only option here is to kill the play when you see it. It's not a foul until he kicks, until the foot makes contact. But once it's done in this situation, by rule, it's a dead ball foul. The only possibility is a 5-yard penalty from the previous spot to re-kick. And that's why that's the only option here. Any questions on that one that y'all are seeing?
No, you answered them all, Kev. It's a dead ball foul, so if we recognize this, kill it immediately.
And yeah, if anybody, again, not something we see all the time, but so let's move on to another type of kicking play, and we're going back several years to get video on this one. All right. So excuse the video quality of here, but this is about how good the video quality was in 1982. So we have a play, we're snapping from the 18-yard line. Fourth down punt play. So the previous spot is the 18. Let's take a look at the punter. So he's going to punt it from just at or beyond the 20. And your poll question is, since we can talk about an illegal kick, a scrimmage kick, a punt kicked when the kicker's body is beyond the neutral zone is a foul for an illegal kick. What are our enforcement options on here? Again, the previous spot is the 18. The punter punts it from the 18. I'm sorry, previous spot is the 18. The punter punts it from the 20. What are our options? How do we enforce this? Don't worry about the referee's signal. That's a completely different rule book. But for our purposes, let's talk about what we're going to do. And your options, we're going to go, it's B's ball, 1st and 10 from the A20, which would be a loss of down at the spot of the foul. B, 1st and 10 at the A15, which is 5 yards from the spot of the foul and the loss of down. B can take it 1st and 10 at the 10, a 10-yard spot foul. B can take it at the 13, 5 yards from the previous spot and loss of down. Or B can take it half the distance from the previous spot and loss of down. Let's take another look at the play, and we'll go ahead and end the poll in a few seconds. Previous spot 18, punt at the 20, kicker's body completely beyond. What are the options? We'll go ahead and close the poll in about 10 seconds. Still have some votes coming in. Okay, we'll go ahead and shut it down now. All right. Okay, so let's see. We've got a little bit of a variety here. Most of you, 34% of you, say 1st and 10 from the A15. B, 1st and 10 from the A15, which would be 5 yards from the spot of the foul and a loss of down. The next number is 29% say 5 yards from the previous spot with a loss of down, and then a few say 10 yards from the 20 to the 10, which would get B. Okay, so a good discussion here. The correct answer is B can take the ball 1st and 10 at the A13, 5 yards from the previous spot and a loss of down. And let's go ahead and talk about what we have here. Again, we know it's illegal here because a punt is legal if it's made in or behind the neutral zone before a change of possession. So there's two ways to violate the rule. One is to be beyond the line, or the second is to, after a change of possession, punt again. That's a return kick. We don't have that in this play, but that's just one of the other ones. But let's talk about the one we have here. The scrimmage kick made when the kicker's entire body is beyond the neutral zone, which we have here, is an illegal kick. And it's a live ball foul that causes the ball to become dead. The only time I think in the NCAA rule book that we have these situations is dealing with illegal kicks like this. This is a live ball foul that causes the ball to become dead immediately. So when this punter kicks the ball at the 20, we should have a flag at that spot and we should be killing the clock. But the penalty is not from that spot. It would, and it's if the illegal kick occurs beyond the neutral zone like it does here, the penalty is going to be from the previous spot. And there's a few reasons for that. You can think of a situation where the punter, maybe he runs 10 yards and then kicks it, does this kind of strange, stupid thing that we kill everything for, but then he's beyond the line to gain after enforcement, so we're going to let him keep the ball. No, if you're signaling you're punting the ball, you're signaling you don't want the ball anymore. So we're not going to do that. We're always going to enforce it from the previous spot. Now, I think sometimes a mistake comes in. We kind of think, well, we would force an illegal forward pass from the spot of the foul. Yes, we would, but that's a passing play, not a play that's designed at the outset to say, I'm giving the ball up to you. That's one of the differences here. So if you have this situation, the enforcement will be from the previous spot, 5 yards, loss of down. Biggest takeaway, I think, from this one is remember the ball becomes dead immediately, something we don't see other times. The other thing, and it's a 5-yard penalty as opposed to a 10-yard penalty. And that's where the highlighted thing I have here before. You know, illegal batting, illegal kicking, that's a 10-yard penalty. That's true. But don't confuse an illegal kick with illegally kicking the ball. Those are two different fouls, two different penalties, two different things entirely. The illegally kicking the ball is pretty much almost like illegal batting. Someone is intentionally kicking the ball to get it away from somebody else. An illegal kick is the type of kick I'm intentionally doing. So remember, two different things, two different codes, two different fouls, two different penalties. That's why one's 5 and one's 10. Any questions on that?
No, I don't think so, Kev. Thanks for highlighting the spirit and intent of the rule as to why it's enforced in the previous spot. I thought that was really fascinating the way you broke that down. Thank you.
You got it. Let's see. You know, some of you are on overtime here a little more. Finishing up with two things, and then we'll be on our way. And I'm actually going to go ahead and do the slide because we're talking about timing and end of game scenarios here. So I bring this up on these 2 videos, and we'll talk about it. And one of them reminds us about the end of the half issue. So let's go ahead and play this next video. Put that up, and I'll go ahead and put the poll. We'll take a look, and we want to keep a look at the game clock here in this play. You can see 9 seconds left in half, 3rd and 10. Auburn gets a pass, and they're going to run beyond the line to gain and go down. The clock is going to expire, but we're going to have a situation of replay is going to take a look at here in something because what we'll see on the game clock is that when the Auburn player actually goes down, we have 1 second on the game clock. He's made a first down. He's made the line to gain. The clock went to 0 incorrectly. Replay is looking at it, and they can see that the game clock should have been stopped with 1 second on the clock. So we go into review, and the question is, what is the result after the replay here? And your options are Team A is going to get an untimed down. Team A gets 1 second put back on the clock, or the half is over. And let's see. Okay, we'll go ahead and play it one more time while it plays here. Again, time and distance important here. 3rd and 10 with 9 seconds. Player is well beyond the line to gain. And as you can see, thanks to CBS here, he's inside the target line for a field goal. So the clock went to 0 inadvertently. Does he get an untimed down? Does A get 1 second back in the clock, or is the half over? And we'll go ahead and end the poll in a few seconds. Okay, we'll go ahead and end the poll now. And okay, a split here. 60% saying the half was over, 40% saying 1 second back on the clock, and the 1% saying untimed down. Sort of a trick question. Last year, Team A is going to get 1 second put back on the clock. What we have this year, however, under our new rule for 2020, is the half is going to be over. And let's say why. The situation here is important only when the clock goes to 0 under the new rule. This is actually going to be part of Rule 12.3.6, I think, when it's finally done. But we're talking about a situation when the clock expires for a half. If after a replay review, the game clock would start on the referee's signal, then to get another play, there must be at least 3 seconds remaining when the ball should have been declared dead. So a couple of things to look at that. One, we know that the clock would have stopped because the player got beyond the line of game. But he's inbounds. So we know right away the referee's signal is going, we're going to start that clock up on the ready for play, on the referee's signal. So that's one thing. We know that the clock went to 0 here, and so replay can look at that. But now, because of those things, the only way Auburn gets another play this year in this play is if the clock should have stopped at 3 seconds remaining. If it's 1 or 2 seconds, the half is over. Why? Because the reality is we were going to put the ball down with it. Yeah, he had 1 second. You're right. He was stopped with 1 second. The clock shouldn't have went to 0. What's the reality? Center judge or the umpire, we're getting the ball, we're spotting it, we're in position, we're winding the clock. But now, what are the chances of rushing the field goal team on in that situation? Very high, very highly unlikely. And now, instead, what we're going to do, we're going to go to a 45 or 90-second replay. So now the field goal team can come out there and wait for 90 seconds, but they're in perfectly situation. I think the rules committee said we got to do something about that. This isn't the only time it's happened. It happened the year before as well in another game. So that's going to be the 3-second rule. So this year, last year, those of you who said they get 1 second, that would have been correct. This year coming up, that's saying the half is over. That's going to be the rule going forward. And there's going to be more coming out from the rules editor and the coordinators on that, especially as it comes to what happens if you have timeouts. Well, if you have timeouts, you can take one. And you can absolve the situation. What happens if there's a penalty and the team can go ahead and say, you know what, I would have taken the clock on the snap as opposed to ready. Those are things that are going to come into play as well. And those explanations will come out as we get closer to the season. But the basic rule is this is how we're going. You need 3 seconds in this situation. Any other questions on that one? Okay, hearing none. I'll go on to the last video that I have and what can be a common situation here. Again, we'll take a look at a situation. We have 9 seconds left in the game on a 4th and 21. And I don't have a poll on this, so we'll just take a look. But basically, the question is going to be, does the quarterback have one time for the quarterback have a chance to spike the ball in this situation? We see that it's down with 1 second. And then we're going to wind up, and the question is, can he snap the ball? Or can he spike the ball? And I think I cut it off here. We'll go ahead and play it one more time just so we're doing while we're talking through this. Because this is what every team wants to do when they're behind, right? They want to go ahead, get it up there, spike the ball, and set things up for a last-minute field goal by spiking it. So we'll take a look. And the clock running at this point. Wyoming dropping back with a catch. Down with about 2 seconds at that point. Of course, the clock is stopped at 1. Doesn't go to 0. That's where we're dealing with. So now everybody's up. There is 1 second. We're inbounds. The clock is going to wind on the ready. So can the quarterback spike the ball and have another play? And the answer to that is no. This was put in a little while back. In order to spike the ball and have time to kill the clock, you have to have at least 3 seconds. And that's only in the situation where if the game clock is stopped momentarily and it's going to start on the referee's signal. I know sometimes in test sessions and study sessions we've had, well, wait, what if the clock is 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1? Does that mean he has to snap the ball before 2 seconds? No, in that situation, he can try to do whatever he wants because the clock is running. That's not a problem. This rule specifically talks about a situation where the clock is stopped, specifically because he's made a first down play and the clock is stopped momentarily, but it's going to start up when the referee blows it in. So with 3 seconds or more, quarterback might be able to spike the ball. Not guaranteed, but we'll let him have the chance. But if the clock shows 2 or 1, this is going to be the last play of the game. He does not have time to spike the ball. And if he does spike the ball, like he did in this play, the game is over. So that's kind of the 2 or 3 second rule on that. Again, didn't have a poll on that one, but Brandon or Tutai, any questions from the group on that?
No, but Kevin, I think that's really good. So the last two plays, obviously, the new rule with where we go to instant replay if the clock runs out, it kind of just really makes it more consistent with this timing rule. And I think that the one thing I want to point out is for the side judges and field judges, and I don't know if the line judge still participates in the pregame discussion with the clock operators, but this is one key element that needs to be discussed, and hopefully that's in the list of things that you talk about with the clock operators, a situation like this, so we don't have to necessarily get into handle it from an administrative standpoint. We could just have the clock operator be aware and be able to handle this correctly.
I think that's important too, Ty, especially on the last play, because if you saw the video, if you're looking at the video on the Wyoming-Hawaii game, there's certainly an argument that when he was down, maybe the clock was at 3 seconds. I'm not saying we need to nitpick and everything, but it's one of those times. Certainly, we have to be on alert, and I know F&S are certainly clock aware, right? And so we need our clock operators in the stadiums to be clock aware as well. And I'll just echo what you say. There's nothing more important than a strong pregame conference with your clock operators to work them up, train them up, and let them know what we expect and what we need to expect, because they are part of our crew and they play an instrumental role. And if anybody doesn't believe that, all we have to see is what happens when the clock screws up. So great point. We have to get them clock aware on that. Anything else?
Hey, Kev. Yeah. Hey, Kev. And I think this might fall into the brainstorming category because maybe we're not sure yet, or maybe you just have heard more than me. Back to the second to last play, where we had to reset from 0 to 1, and then they had time to rush their field goal team off.
Right.
Now, let's say everything's the same, but instead of going to instant replay, the crew on the field sees that there's 1 or 2 seconds left. And then
right.
We're going to go ahead and, how are we going to handle that? Is it basically the same rule, or are we going to reset and just, have you heard about that?
All I can tell you is just through some of the, email chains and things, it's going to be things that are going to have to be addressed as we come. But I think, one, we need to be clock aware. I think we've made clock, certainly on the field, we can make clock adjustments if we certainly know them. I don't have an answer for that because, you also have the situation of we try to get replay involved in the game when we can, right? Well, usually replay can only get involved in this, I think, if the clock goes to 0. So I think by rule under 12.3.6, all of that might be a little as well. Certainly, we have the authority to be clock aware, and we have the authority to reset the game clock as need be. We're in a rough situation there because we'd be stopping the game and giving the team exactly what they need. So, yeah, it's definitely a brainstorming question. I haven't seen anything official other than I think it's going to be something to be talked about, though field officials will probably retain the right to make corrections as necessary. It's going to be a rough situation either way, don't you think?
Yeah, I agree. I don't know what the right answer is.
Yeah. Hopefully someone will tell us what the right answer will be.
Yeah. If it's a replay only rule, really taking the time to reset the clock could, in essence, create the same problem that we're trying to solve. Yeah.
Well, Brandon, wouldn't we reset a clock if we have a situation where we realize the clock needs to be stopped? If the clock was stopped but it didn't stop, wouldn't we always reset that clock?
Well, that's the question. Does this new 3-second rule just trump that? It feels weird to think about it because, yes, of course, we always would have. But, I don't know. I really don't know. Does the new 3-second rule basically say, well, if the clock expires and it should have been 1 or 2, are we just going to leave it be? I don't know. You know what I mean?
So, but if I think one of the intentions, and well, obviously we haven't had all of the discussions, but one of the intentions that was discussed was so we don't have the field goal team running on and getting an extra field goal. Well, if we reset this clock to 2, we're going to wind it. They really only going to get 1 play, and they probably will not be able to get the field goal team on that quickly anyway. The way I'm looking at it.
Except, Todd, that if we stop it to reset it, they'll probably start running right away because they're going to be running their field goal, unit on as soon as the play is over, even if they don't have enough time.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
And, what you're saying, certainly if this happens at a minute 45 and we have to reset the clock, that's one thing. Happening down here, it's a different situation. And I guess, Brandon, might be the point you're bringing up, that let's say we're looking up at the clock and we know it should stop at 3 or 4, but it goes to 1 or something like that. Well, in a way, if we stop it and fix it, that's not really a problem, because had it gone to 0, replay could have put it back because there's 3 or 4 seconds on there. 1 or 2, though, like we see it go to 1 and it should have stopped at 2. Well, we really know replay can't fix that anyway, and it's not 3 seconds, so maybe we should ignore it at that point. It's a good point. It's good questions we're going to have to deal with, especially in this virtual world for the next couple of months. Could be a little difficult, but it's certainly something I hope, like you point out, is addressed, because now that we're talking about it, we know it's going to come up now somewhere. It's going to happen. And so hopefully we can get the powers that be thinking about that in a brain chat session.
Hey, maybe we go to the basketball thing where the whistle kills the clock. How about that?
Start having it on your hip. Yeah. We wear so many other things on our belt right now, right?
Yeah. That's all we need is more stuff to wear.
Then it'll be, does the Fox 40 get to the symbol, and then the frequency would not be right. So, this is why we have fun with the games, things like this. Well, let's see, guys. That's all the videos I have. Are there any other outstanding questions or anything?
Well, I think that is an outstanding question that we'll just leave outstanding until we get guidance. But once again, your mastery of the rules, I'm jealous of you. It's a target that we all need to work for. Kevin, just thanks so much, man, for really pouring your knowledge out for us, and basically, again, just showing all the rest of us up with your mastery of the rules, man. Great job.
I don't know about all that, but I appreciate it. And like I said, especially you, Tuta, Dave, everyone else, Coriel, everybody. I'm not saying this has been, I think, such a great idea for y'all to get this going. I think this is something that I hope goes well beyond the pandemic, because talking football with 200, 300, 400 people is just a lot of fun. And I know tomorrow night, we got Mike Vandervelde up with talking about microphone mechanics, which I'm sure is going to be great. And other than that, from me, thanks to you, thanks to everybody that joined us today, and hope everyone is doing well. Stay safe, and hope to see everybody on the field soon.
All right, bye for now, Kev.
Thanks a lot, guys. Take care.